Peace, love, and light to the collective. I was supposed to be putting out part 2 to the Weeks Ave joint, and it's probably going to be a part 2 and a part 3. However, I've been getting a lot of texts and a lot of people have been contacting me, asking me particular questions about the blood thing. And, after praying on it and meditating on it this morning, it was just on my spirit to deliver this message. And that's what I do these days. I move in spirit. So when the spirit say, I go. Whatever the direction the spirit leads me in, that's the direction I'm going. So without further ado, this video right here is going to be about OG Mac, the founder of the United Blood Nations here in New York, Omar Porty. And for you, those of you who don't know, this individual, put together these this doctrine, and it wasn't sanctioned by, California. He sat in prison, and because the blacks were going through issues with the police and the Latin Kings and the Nietas, the Puerto Rican gangs and the Spanish gangs, this brother put this stuff together to basically bring, the black brothers together. And, founded on certain principles and stuff like that. It was it was an honorable thing. It must have been needed at the time. I wasn't there. Like I said in the video with 050 The Movement, Harlem Legend, and my boy Kai Reality, like I wasn't no big time New York blood as far as the prison system goes. You know what I mean? I did a bunch of bids. I did 2 federal bids. I did 3 Connecticut state bids, and I only did 1 New York state bid. I've been to Rikers Island a couple times, but I only did 1 New York state bid. And that was in 2014. So I was 35. So by 35, I was already, in my neighborhood considered an OG. So when I went to Rikers Island, I was already, already kind of done with the gangbang and stuff. That's a whole nother video and a whole nother story in itself. So I say all that to say, I wasn't there when he founded what he founded. I wasn't with that whole movement. I actually founded the U.B.N in Connecticut, but that's a whole nother story, whole nother video, whole nother time. I'm just telling you why this thing was going on in New York, 93, 94, probably about 95, 96, it spilled into the streets, into my neighborhood, as I'll explain in one of the later Weeks Avenue videos. And when this spill happened over from Rikers Island into the streets, I was one of the brothers that was there. I was one of the brothers running around with the red Coogee, you know what I'm saying, my red beads, my chains on, flag in my right pocket, flag on my right arm at a time. I didn't say cab, I said bab. I didn't say call, I said ball. My shorty was my old Trey Bix and all of that. I wanted the 212 Skyline and all this other stuff, that he taught us, which, again, it was just like a lot of falsehood. But he was smart enough to put this thing together. And as I was running around the city, a young boy doing these things, the older brothers from the neighborhood who knew OG Mac, they used to say things like, man, I can't believe little Omar, man, got y'all running around talking about y'all blood. I can't believe you, God. Like, God, you ain't no blood. You ain't from California, God. And I'm like, man, God, I'm a dog, man. Do only gangster shit. Not realizing that it was backwards. It was flipped. The generation above us, they was gods. The nations of the gods in the earth. Their leader was Clarence 13X. And, they say he was an alcoholic and, a gambler. And he got, unalive trying to rob somebody or whatever the case may be. So they, too, was under the indoctrination of somebody who wasn't, right and exact with what he was teaching. So us now, we're under, the blood stuff. So I'm like, man, I'm dogs, man. I'm blood. You know what I'm saying? Doing only gangster shit. I'm not God. I'm a dog and all this, and all this and all that. And it was like, man, little Omar got y'all like that, man. He ain't nobody. He's soft, man. I'm like, what? OG Mac, the big homie? And they was like, man, he ain't what he say he is. And OG Ty wasn't blood. OG Ty wasn't his brother. That was somebody he was just running behind. Now, mind you, I'm from 175th and Weeks Avenue. OG Mac is from 183rd and Creston. So if you count, we only 8 blocks away from 1A Trey. I made that up. I used to always say that, man, I'm only 8 blocks away from 1A Trey. Like, we from the neighborhood. And even though it's quite a distance, 8 blocks is a distance, 8 city blocks is a distance. However, we share the same junior high schools. We share the same high schools. You know what I'm saying? When there's a party, block parties, we go to the same parties. We deal with the same females. It's basically the same neighborhood. You know what I mean? We all from the same neighborhood. So these individuals who was OG Mac's age, they knew him before he went to Rikers Island. They knew he was a little dirty dude. He didn't bust his gun. He was typically a nobody. You know what I mean? He got locked up for petty robberies, and then he told on those petty robberies. But of course, none of us knew that at the time, and you couldn't tell me nothing about this dude. You couldn't tell me nothing about blood. You couldn't tell me we wasn't official. You couldn't tell me we wasn't real, and all that. So fast forward, you know, when he actually got out in '99, I met him at the top of 2000. You know, I was on the run for 2 attempt murders in Connecticut, and I was back in New York like around March, April, May of 2000. And I had the opportunity to meet the brother. And when I met him, off top, I began to see, a lot of what they were saying. First thing that I saw was like, looking him in his eyes, you know what I'm saying? And when you out there in the streets, you in and out of prison, and you in the streets, even as a kid in the streets, you know what I'm saying? We could smell fear, you know what I'm saying? You could smell fear, you could see fear, you can see when somebody ain't really, like that. And that was the first thing I saw in him, you know what I'm saying? The entity and energies that was connected to me, like, them demons, they show themselves. So sometimes you look in somebody's eyes and it look like ain't nobody home. Sometimes you look in somebody's eyes, he done took a few lives, you know what I'm saying? Or he's grimy. And you could sometimes, it don't even got to be a dude. Sometimes you could look in the stripper's eyes and see the hurt and the pain in her from, being molested or whatever she went through, whatever spirit she got attached to her. You could see in people's eyes, and like his eyes didn't hold a lot of fear to me. And, this is before I was spiritual. It was just, an observation that I observed, just being very observant and aware. I've been that way since a kid. So it didn't add up. He didn't look right. And it's before he spoke one word. So when we was introduced to him, we was introduced to him by an individual named Lil G. Shout out to Lil Gary. He came home from his 30 years. It's actually OG Mac's co-defendant. And I was actually with him in Leavenworth. It's just crazy how the world is so small and how everything correlates with each other. Because when I got to Leavenworth, Kansas, I didn't know nobody in the jail. The only person I knew was Little G, who was OG Mac's co-defendant. And we're actually from the same neighborhood. And this is actually the guy who, introduced us to OG Mac. But that's a whole nother story for another time. So Little G, B-Mo, he introduced us to OG Mac. And the introduction was like, yo, these my little homies. They out here turned up, whoop-de-whoop-de-bam. And we was on Creston, and he was like, yo, where's so-and-so? Like, OG Mac. He was asking where was the older dudes from his age who used to control that block. And, we like, oh, so-and-so? Oh, man, he ain't here no more. And, yo, what happened to so-and-so? Yeah, he got killed. And what happened to? And it was like, so how y'all over here? Y'all from all the way from Weeks. He's like, oh, yeah, we shot so-and-so. We gun-butted these niggas. And, we told them, they wasn't blood. They couldn't eat. And the look on his face was like he was like shocked. You know what I'm saying? So that was the second thing. And then as we telling him what we did, as we telling him we took over our block, as we telling him we got work on Creston, we got work on 184th and T-Bout, we on 169 in Boston Road. We happy, we excited, like, yeah, homie, we with the homies on B Road, we with the homies over here, we with the homies on the 9, and we did this and we did this. I could see the fear in them. Now, I'm not, now that I'm older, I probably have been scared too, like, man, these little niggas gonna send me back to jail, you know what I'm saying? But I seen it, like, I was like, yo, I'm excited, like, come on, leader, tell us what to do next. Like, we got everything we need, like, we just waiting for you. And man, he had that look, like that fear. I seen it in him. It wasn't in him. So as we telling them these things, I proceed with my line of questioning, you know what I'm saying? Because my little homies, they was like, they was looking up to him as a guy. And I was kind of too, but I was getting straight to the business. I'm like, yo, what's up with the homies in Brooklyn? What's up with the homies in Queens? Like, who what homies you got? Plug us in with these homies and let's see if they got work over there. If they don't got work over there, my Dominican mans, they got birds. We could get them work. If they don't run their block, we could take over their block. Yo, homie, the world is ours. And he was just like, I seen he was trying to think. He didn't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? Somebody, if they changed or they already got their game plan, they just tell you straight up, nah, homie, we ain't doing that. This what we doing. They assertive. He wasn't even assertive. He was just like, Homie, he had a box of t-shirts, and he grabbed the t-shirts, the old 31 t-shirts. He was like, man, we selling t-shirts, and we got the literature. And I thought like he meant like, some literature, like some, Black Panther literature, because, we thought we was Black Panthers and shit from where he taught us. And he had these blood codes, like, shit that we use to communicate that's sacred. I know you had to cut somebody or put in work to get these blood codes when he found the blood, but he had them in a box with these blood t-shirts, and he was selling the codes for like $50. Like if you had $50, I seen him selling the niggas who wasn't even blood. And this shit was sacred. Like people done got cut over this, people done lost their lives and, ran their biz up. And he was selling paperwork to anybody who had $50. He was selling them t-shirts to anybody who had $50. And he was like, yeah, we doing t-shirts. We, and I'm looking at this nigga like, so from that moment, I seen, I didn't know he's told on somebody. I didn't know none of that yet, but I already seen, I was already let down. You know what I'm saying? It was like, finding out your idol ain't, what he's supposed to be, right? So, in that same, conversation, I began to tell him like, yo, well, whoop-de-whoop, we did this, we did that. And he was like, homie, I'm not with none of that. I'm just trying to sell this paperwork, and I'm just selling this. He didn't have no real game plan. Nothing was structured, or nothing. So, long story short, my next interaction with him, there was like a African Day parade. And he was, he sent the word out to all the homies that we was gonna have a float for all the homies to show up. And I mean, from all over, you know what I mean? It was like a big meet and greet. So it's a whole bunch of homies out there, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homies. We never had a float. Whatever he said about having a float, he posted that, spoke to the mayor and got a float. He never got a float. And while we standing out there, is, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bloods from all over the city. And I'm watching him watch the swarm of red, this whole sea of red. And when somebody say brat, you just hear a whole sea of brat. And I'm watching him, and I could see the fear. I could see like he was looking over what he had done. And I could see a little bit of regret, and I could see a little bit of fear. I didn't see like pride or proud in him. Like, I used to promote parties, and I'll look over the crowd and see how many people and be like, man, I got all these people in here. It wasn't that type of, you know what I'm saying, nostalgia. It was like fear, like, oh shit, this is bigger than me. And I realized that, he really didn't understand what he did, and he couldn't even grasp it, and he wasn't even powerful enough to absorb that energy. You know what I'm saying? And I seen it. And then now that I know that he was a snitch, and now that I know that, I think in his mind, he was like, damn, I just barely got out of the state. Niggas just found out in the state that I was snitching. It's only a matter of time before this shit hit the streets. And I'm going to have to deal with all these little niggas. Not counting these little niggas from Weeks Avenue that's behind me. I'm going to have to deal with these niggas too. Because he would have at that time, you know what I'm saying? So I seen it. I seen everything that they said. And at that point, I seen little Omar. OG Mac was dead. The gang leader, the founder, the myth, the man, the legend, was dead. You know what I'm saying? His reputation didn't precede him. You know what I mean? He wasn't what he claimed to be. And I'm not on here to sound like, I'm just talking stuff about him, because I cooperated on homicides. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to act like I'm holier than thou. Only thing I'm doing is saying, in these later videos, if I decide to, point out some of your favorite rappers from the 90s and tell you they wasn't really gang, and tell you they never really sold drugs, and tell you they went to private school, that they graduated from college, and that there's no New York block in New York City that they ever ran or controlled, and tell you that they was just like OG Mac. They was somebody promoting and propagating a lifestyle that they wasn't really living. And the same way you couldn't tell, 18, 19-year-old bucks, you know what I'm saying, that my leader and the nigga who indoctrinated me was a fraud, that we wasn't sanctioned to be blood, that we didn't go under the 5-point star, that OG Ty wasn't some OG who died in the name of blood. If you would have told me that, I would have, I'd have tried to tear your head off like you being disrespectful. So it took me years to get older and realize that. So when I tell you about your rappers, just compare them, these New York City, 1990s to early 2000 rappers the same as an OG Mac. It's somebody who's, pretending to be something that they're not for monetary gain or for structure or for protection. It's a lot of little Omars hiding behind these big names. You know what I'm saying? And especially the ones who promote, the gangster rap and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with finishing college. There's nothing wrong with, going to private schools and having a mother and father in your home. But it is something wrong when you're pretending, to be something you're not. The movie CB4, you young kids, if you've never seen CB4, go see CB4. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of your favorite rappers are MC Gustos. You know what I'm saying? They're portraying to be something they're not. And they fool kids like me and people like that was in the streets, living off these lyrics, putting in work to these lyrics, living and breathing these lyrics, feeling the spirit of these lyrics and becoming what we were listening to and rapping about. You know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about a particular, age group. I'm talking about my age group from the late mid-90s all the way up to the early 2000s. Now, today's drill rappers is a little different because now y'all already, putting in work. The drill rappers are really putting in work. But now with this death cult that y'all doing, this drill music, you know what I'm saying? Y'all are indoctrinated in death. You know what I'm saying? The twirl dances, the drill dances, this is tribalism. This is like African tribalism. And when there's a death involved and you call yourself, your man, Rock died and now y'all Rock gang. So now y'all taking the spirit of Rock and placing it on you. And then you're dancing to the Rock gang and you had love for Rock. So that love turns into a hatred for the opposition. So now this death is promoting, a cycle of death. So now you dancing and you listening to the drums and you smoking and you doing your little this and that. And it's, filling you with a spirit of death. It's filling you with a spirit of murder. So it's going to be an ongoing cycle. So your actual hip hop guys, the drill rappers, they actually are, putting in work or getting busy. But a lot of them are still scared little Omars or scared little Charlies. A lot of them, you know what I'm saying? So when someone tells you about an individual, I hope that you have a spiritual eye or a keen eye to be aware enough to say, you know what, this person might not be who he say he is. And I already know deep down in my heart that I don't want to go spin. I don't want to go put in work. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to. You don't. Because the person who told you that you should be spinning, which is probably a rap artist or somebody in your gang who might have told when he was younger, or somebody in your gang who might be a closet homosexual or been raped or molested, and he's holding these things on himself and he thinks you could see it. So to keep you from not seeing it, he wears a mask and he pretends to be something he's not. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? The whole time they in the Wizard of Oz, they thought this wizard was a big bad dude. But when they get to the end of the movie, they get to open the veil, they open the curtain and they look within the curtain and they find out that the wizard is a little old dude, that he had all these things to make him seem like he was big and bad. And that's what your rappers are. That's what these gang leaders are in New York. You know what I'm saying? They're the little person who's portraying something big, and your love and your loyalty and your energy, you start to feed something and you become something else and you'll open yourself up to something. And I'll get into that in a whole nother videos, but I'm going to leave it at this. Not only was we led astray by an individual or individuals who are not really what they perceive to be, but when you take an oath, a prayer, a pledge, and you change your name, you become a novice. You become, a student or underling. It's ritualistic, right? And then you take the 5-point star, and then we rep in red, which is the lowest vibrational color, with a 5-point star. Then I throw it up with the homies. Then I put it over my heart. These are pledges. These are oaths, and these are things that weaken your spirit and allow things to come in. Never mind the fact that you're running around with red and black beads out of the Botanica, from a store where they practice witchcraft. And I have nothing against whatever it is that people practice. What I'm saying is, if you unwillingly do these things, then you're unknowingly open a door to allow something to attach itself to you, and then you become little drilly or this blicky or this drilly this and this. You change your name and you become that. So you live that and you have that spirit of death upon you. So you moving upon the spirit of death and you engaging in that. You know what I'm saying? But it's indoctrination. You're being indoctrinated without even realizing it. Whether it's blue or red. Red is the fifth chakra, which is a higher vibration than the red chakra, but you still haven't reached the level of your third eye consciousness. You haven't reached the level of your crown chakra. You haven't reached the level of the outer body and going to the ethers and become more than yourself. So what we're doing is we're acting lower vibrational and we're embracing everything that's low in vibration, and it's going to hold you back. And the main thing starts in the mind and the indoctrination. So believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, or none of what you hear and half of what you see. Word to mother. And listen to your mother because she loves you. You know what I'm saying? Wholeheartedly. You know what I'm saying? So her guidance and wisdom towards you, because that's who she is. She's your guidance and your wisdom. The things she's going to tell you is coming from the heart. So that's what y'all listen to. Stay tuned for more content. You know, I'm going to get back into the weeks thing. I'm going to get back into the New York blood thing and a whole bunch of other things. You know, esoterically, I want to wake you guys up and let y'all know exactly what's going on, you know, with this music, with the gangbanging, with these communities. And it's a lot that you need to really know what's going on to make you aware, or what they call woke. Peace, love, and light to the collective.